All right, welcome back, everyone. Let's go ahead and take a minute and talk about exam number 3, corresponding to book chapters 7 through 13. We'll go more into that detail. It's actually 7 through 15. This is our third time around, so it'll be similar to exams 1 and 2. Hopefully you're getting a handle on how these things work. It'll open up at 5 a.m. on Wednesday, December 2nd, and you have to have it completed by 5 p.m. on Friday, December 4th. Just like the other ones, we have a 50-minute time limit. So it's similar format to the quizzes. The only difference is now this has a time limit. I believe it shows you your running clock. Keep an eye on that time limit. It starts as soon as you start the exam, and you only have that 50 minutes to complete it. Don't let time run out. Don't leave anything blank, right? Last time we did 45 questions. First time we did 50. It seemed a little long. Last time we did 45. Seemed like most people seemed to finish. So I went with 45 again. Multiple choice. Really, mostly just all multiple choice, but there could be true, false, fill in the blank, things like that. So the idea is that you can answer some of these questions without actually searching the answers for each one. If you are a little unfamiliar, you're not exactly certain, then you can, of course, look it up. But there won't be time to look up every single 45 questions, right? I do recommend you get highly organized. You have everything set up, ready to go before you start the exam. I also, a little word of advice when you're doing the exam, I don't know if you noticed, there's a little flag you can click like right next to the question, and it'll let you know if you want to skip questions and come back to it, click the little flag. What I would do is I'd go through the entire exam, and anytime I'm unsure or I need to look something up, just click that little flag, go through the whole first round and answer everything you can. Then on the second round, go to each one of those flagged numbers and look them up as needed, right? Or follow some kind of process, whatever works best for you, but that's probably what I would do. All test questions are from topics from the slides and video recordings. I will say that the last 2 guest lectures did not provide us PowerPoint slides. They only gave us the videos, and in addition to that, we had a homework covering the first 2 presentations. So in general, I would say do not spend a lot of time studying the guest lectures. That'll be way less emphasized. It's probably good background information and things, but it's not going to be highly emphasized on this exam. Let's see. It is open book and open note. You can't seek help from anyone else. You shouldn't be searching answers on the internet. You shouldn't be contacting individuals, others in the class, anything like that. Covers chapters 7, 8, 9, 15. 7 was thermal moisture protection. 8 was openings. 9 was finishes. 15 was plumbing. There is another one in here that wasn't actually a chapter. That's our last topic on sustainability. So that one, instead of going to the textbook, you're going to have to rely on my video and the PowerPoint presentations. Just like last time, there might be some very small calculations, less so with this one, but there might be a couple in there. So you might want a calculator handy as well. So going through the topics, starting with thermal moisture protection, we covered this in 2 parts. First part looked at moisture control and protection. You should be familiar and know what type of moisture we protect against in construction. What does it look like? You should know how we measure the effectiveness of vapor retarders. Remember that idea of PERMs and what is a PERM? And where they are installed, on which side of the wall. Is it closer to the cold side or the hot side? Know where we use ventilation and how it's installed. Remember, we want to suck all that humidity out. Know the difference between damp proofing and waterproofing. Give you a hint, one of them's below the water table, right? That's waterproofing. Damp proofing isn't made to be submerged. But know how they're applied and different types of materials. What about thermal control and insulation? How do we measure the effectiveness of thermal insulation? That was that R value thing, right? Know the 4 primary types of insulation, how they're different and how they're used and installed. Know where and how insulation is typically installed for slabs, ceilings, floors, walls. Basically all that, how we're insulating different, like you'd have blow-in in the attic versus the exterior grade would have that encapsulated foam insulation. Know the primary difference between the two EFIS systems discussed in class, basic components of each. Moving on to part 2, thermal and moisture control, starting with the roofing part of it. What's the difference between a steep slope and a low slope roof? Remember that had to do with the slope. Know the difference between slope and pitch as well. They aren't the exact same thing, right? And how the methods of roofing differ for each. Know the components, layers, general installation for steep slope roofs, i.e. shingled roofs. Know how installation differs for tile roofs. I don't know, there should be an S there. So remember with the tiles, they're heavier, so we have this little batten type of installation. Know several locations where flashing is important to install for steep slope roofs. Know the difference in types of installation for low slope roofs. We did have a guest lecture on this, but it's also covered in the PowerPoint slides for low slope roofs. Know the difference between built up membranes and single ply roofs. Those were both the low slope roof. Know the layers of these systems. Part 2 for this, we moved on to walls with siding. Know some difference between aluminum and vinyl siding. Fire containment and control. How do we fireproof? What are some strategies? 3 strategies that we talked about. And how do we contain? Several means for fire containment. Joint protection. How is this whole idea of thermal and moisture protection? We talked about these sealants around windows, things like that, right? Then we moved on to openings, doors, and windows. And this was all covered in a single lecture. Know the primary types and styles of doors and windows and how to identify them. This is something that I expect to have a picture and be able to identify a particular door, its swing, what's the style of the door. If for some reason the picture doesn't show up on your exam, I'm pretty sure you can refresh it or you can right-click it. There's different methods you can use, but don't just answer the question blindly. If you're working and can't get it, shoot me an email. I can extend time if it seems like you're going to need extra time because you've had some technical difficulty, but hopefully all the pictures should come up. We've used them in previous exams, but I know that's been an issue for a couple of you. Know how the doors and windows are installed and how the door anchors work. Know what door hardware can be included, what it would look like in a project manual. And understand why a thermal break is needed. Remember, the thermal break was if I have a metal on the inside and outside, I don't want heat to be transferred through that metal, so I have that break. That's what that thermal break is. Curtain walls. Know what a curtain wall is and the 2 primary types based on installation type. Glass and glazing. What is the difference between annealing and tempering glass? What about laminated, wire, light reducing, heat absorbing? What about the types we can finish, the types and methods that we can surface finish the glass? So moving on to finishes, this was covered in 2 parts. First we did walls and ceilings. What about the lath and plaster? What were the components of lath and plaster? What about the difference between gypsum and Portland cement? The Portland cement was what we know more as stucco. It's an exterior, it's water resistant, versus gypsum would only be used with a non-water resistant area or no water around it. Be familiar with the types of wallboard. Gypsum wallboard, also known as drywall. Know how gypsum wallboard is fastened and finished. We talked about nails and drywall screws, different types of drywall screws. What are those labeled and how do they look? Understand different acoustical treatments and how they are supported and attached. Remember, we had mounted to the wall or dangling from a ceiling. Know the difference between a paint and a coating. Coating is heat treated like a powder coating or anodized, right? Versus paint is in field applied. Understand the use of primers in paints. Part 2 is looking at flooring. So you should know the required characteristics of subflooring. Ceramic tiles, what are the benefits, types of installation, how it is installed. What about subfloor type, expansion joints, things like that. Terrazzo, what is terrazzo? What are the components of terrazzo? How is it bound together? And how is it installed? Wood flooring, what types of wood flooring are there? Hardwood versus softwoods. Installation, remember blind nailing through the tongue of the hardwood. What about resilient flooring? What types? What are the types of resilient flooring? Things like linoleum, right? Selection and installation. Carpet. What are the components and selection criteria, installation types for carpet? Then we moved over to plumbing. You should know different types of plumbing materials, benefits and drawbacks of each. So we had things like galvanized plumbing. What happens to galvanized as it ages? I should be familiar with that. Versus copper. What's a drawback to copper? The cost, right? Understand who's writing the codes for plumbing safety and what they might entail. Understand how water is distributed through a building system. We talked about upflow versus downflow, things like that. Drainage considerations, differences between sewage and storm water. At some point, you need to keep them separate, right? Understand local jurisdictions and understand methods of foundation and under slab drainage. The last topic we talked about was sustainability. What is sustainability? What does it mean? How is it affected by the environmental, social, and economic factors? We had that Venn diagram with the three circles, right? Know the impacts from the construction industry. Large impacts in sustainability due to construction industry, and it's definitely increasing over the last few years. Should be familiar with that. Know the components of sustainable building practices. Defining green materials and embodied energies. Remember, embodied is like the amount of energy it takes from the production, from the very beginning until it's actually in use and in service. How much energy does it take for different materials? Know the rating system. There's multiple rating systems. We talked about 3 of them to certify a building. What is define and be able to give examples of a rapidly renewable material? Those are things like bamboo and cork. Understand the effect of construction and demolition waste and mitigation through recycling. So huge issues with construction and demolition waste. Also be familiar with the proportionality. What is the largest component of that construction and demolition waste? So that's what I have. I wish everyone the best of luck. Let me know if you have any questions or comments. Make sure you get this thing done by Friday at 5 p.m. That means you got to start by Friday at 4:10 p.m., right, to get the full amount of time. So give yourself enough time. I wouldn't procrastinate quite that long, but you know what's best for you. So good luck again, and I'll talk to you all later. Thanks.